Renouncing what must be renounced. Transcending the worldly life. In the sutras, the Buddha taught, shaving off the hair and beard, putting on the ochre robe, and going forth from the home life into homelessness. This is the second stage on the practice path of Buddhism. If lay followers want to advance to this stage, they must thoroughly understand the ordained life and ask themselves whether they can truly live such a life. The ordained life of shaving off the hair and beard and putting on the ochre robe is the first behavioral precept in the moral virtues of holy monks and holy nuns. Therefore, to become a holy monk or a holy nun, one must possess the dignified appearance of a holy being. Thanks to that appearance, kings, rulers, and powerful people must bow their heads in reverence upon seeing them. Currently, monks and nuns are not respected and revered by everyone because they do not live according to the holy life. They frequently violate the precepts and lack the dignified manners and refined conduct of a holy being. Through the teaching in this sutra paragraph, shaving off the hair and beard, putting on the ochre robe, this is the instruction to renounce the secular life to cut off external conditions. You must not apply makeup or beautify yourself. You must make yourself ugly. Your clothing must not be polished. You must wear coarse and ugly fabrics. The external appearance must destroy and discard worldly beauty so that people no longer pay attention to you. Only then can you easily practice. In the book Gathering Sand and Stones, there is a story about a very beautiful young woman who came to ask a Zen master for permission to practice. The Zen master said, "You cannot practice." Surprised, she asked the Zen master, "Why can I not practice? Please instruct me." The Zen master replied, "Because you are too beautiful." Hearing this, she returned home and found a way to destroy her own beauty. After the wound on her face healed, it left a scar that made her face look like a vicious demon. Then, she returned to meet the Zen master. Upon seeing her face, the Zen master recognized her and accepted her to stay and practice. The story above is a story of Eastern Zen. But even Eastern Zen does not accept physical beauty, let alone true Buddhism. Is that not true, my friends? The next sentence in the sutra teaches, renouncing wealth, properties, houses, and careers. This is the teaching to let go of worldly material possessions, keeping nothing but 3 robes and 1 alms bowl. Consequently, the mind no longer worries, regrets, or fears damage, loss, fires, floods, thieves, or disputes from others. Also in that sutra, the final sentence teaches, living without a family. This means completely severing emotional ties with parents, brothers, sisters, spouses, children, friends, and relatives. When clearly understanding each paragraph of this sutra, we see that the Buddha instructed very clearly. Lay followers who are determined to follow the liberation path of Buddhism must begin transitioning to a new life, the ascetic life. Although this sutra paragraph is short, we see that the teaching of the Buddha is absolutely clear. This is a monumental change in a human life, which can be categorized into 3 cases as follows. 1. A person who enters the religion but still applies makeup, dresses up, and beautifies themselves can never thoroughly follow Buddhism in their practice. 2. A person who enters the religion but does not renounce wealth, properties, material goods, gold, silver, and jewels can never thoroughly follow Buddhism in their practice. 3. A person who enters the religion but does not renounce emotional ties and does not cut off the attachment to their loved ones can never thoroughly follow Buddhism in their practice. The primary difficulty for a person entering Buddhism lies in these 3 cases. If you renounce one but keep 2, entering the religion is useless. If you renounce two but keep one, practicing yields no results. Only when you completely renounce all three cases can your ordained practice achieve the result of liberation. If you fail to renounce these three cases, even if you become ordained, you are merely a bald-headed layperson, not a true monk. Examining these three cases, first of all, if we want to practice seeking liberation, we must stop applying makeup, dressing up, and beautifying ourselves. We must practice wearing truly ugly fabrics. Next, we must practice giving alms, renouncing wealth and properties, and letting go completely. Do not think of saving money to build beautiful temples or shrines to save other practitioners. That is worldly reasoning hiding behind the door of religion. That is your own mind deceiving you. You practice to save yourself from the miserable realms of sinking and floating. If you cannot save yourself, yet you worry about saving others, that is foolish delusion. Do not rush to become a teacher of gods and humans while your own practice is still at zero. Do not imitate the Mahayana followers acting as bodhisattvas saving living beings. Beware, or both you and those living beings will fall into hell together. That is merely a cleverly disguised desire for fame and profit. We must renounce all properties like layman Pang Yun, who dumped all his wealth, properties, and jewels into the river without a single ounce of regret. Once we successfully renounce wealth, jewels, gold, and silver, how must we resolve our emotions so that we are no longer bound by love and longing for our dear ones? This is an extremely difficult stage in Buddhism. It sounds easy, but doing it is incredibly difficult because it belongs to the fetter of affection. Not just anyone can transcend the worldly life. One must be dauntless, full of willpower, resolute, and courageous to break free. A person with a family, like the lay followers sitting here listening to my lecture, ask yourselves, can you immediately abandon your family to enter the monkhood? You want to enter the monkhood, but do your spouse and children agree? If you sever ties and leave, you have gone against the Buddha's teaching, not afflicting oneself or afflicting others. Based on this point, you might ask us, why did the Buddha enter the monkhood by abandoning his wife, his child, and his royal family, while everyone disagreed and did not want to be separated out of love? If the Buddha acted like that, yet here the Master tells us not to cause suffering to ourselves and others, does Buddhism contradict itself? You forget that when the Buddha entered the monkhood, Buddhism did not exist. Because Buddhism did not exist, no one taught the humanistic ethics of cause and effect, which means not causing suffering to oneself and others. But now we have Buddhism, and the Buddha taught, ethics means not afflicting oneself or afflicting others. Therefore, Madame Dhamma had to wait until her husband died before she could enter the monkhood. By then, she was over 70 years old. She was a holy nun during the time of the Buddha. The word duty binds us tighter than iron chains. The human duty toward our parents, spouses, and children. Can we abandon it? Very few people can do that. It is not easy at all. Is that not true, my friends? A person who accomplishes this is like a school of fish caught in a net, yet only one fish manages to escape. That is a rare and extraordinary event. Thus, Zhuangzi clapped his hands in praise. That fish is truly smart, absolutely wonderful. We are the people entirely surrounded by the net of family, the net of material goods, the net of fame, and the net of profit, unable to escape. Master Min Tong was a lay follower with a wife, young children, and a sick elderly mother. But facing the reality of life and death, the suffering of disease, and the cycle of rebirth of human life, he could wait no longer. He boldly resolved to break out of the net to realize the path of liberation, to save himself and everyone, including his family, parents, wife, and children. But 5 years passed, proving he could not cut off the fetter of affection. Every time his wife and children visited, he asked to meet them. Alas, having the determination to practice, but failing to eradicate the fetter of affection, wastes a whole lifetime. He also bears the reputation of being unfilial, lacking affection for his wife and children, and failing to fulfill his duties as a husband and a father. It is truly blameworthy, is it not, my friends? A person doing what lay follower Min Tong did is not something everyone can achieve. But because he only accomplished it through external form, while his inner mind did not eradicate the fetter of affection, his path of practice collapsed. Most of you present here, listening to my lecture, are merely listening to gain knowledge. You do not have enough courage to break through the nets of the family, shave off your hair and beard, become ordained, completely change your life, and cut off emotional bonds and family ties to realize the noble life of Buddhism. Not afflicting oneself or afflicting others. Furthermore, to go deeper into the liberation path of Buddhism, one must practice Zen concentration, calm the formations in the body, master life and death, and sweep away the law of cause and effect and the cycle of rebirth. A stay-at-home layperson living with their family cannot possibly do these things. The practice path of Buddhism is not as simple as people think. It must be implemented step by step from the beginning, with an enlightened master guiding the practice correctly according to the Dharma. Monks and Buddhists, just think about it. The formations in our bodies are operating automatically, such as the beating heart, the breathing lungs, the stomach churning food, the small and large intestines, the perspiring skin, the brain and the nervous system working incessantly. The breath goes in and out continuously. Yet, a practitioner trains to control and make all these bodily formations stop working. Monks and Buddhists, think for yourselves. This is not an easy task to do or practice. If your mind is still polluted by the worldly burdens, still loving, still hating, still getting angry, still desiring this and that object, still enjoying talking about worldly and religious matters, arguing to win or lose, and not yet abandoning and staying far away, then you monks and Buddhists surely cannot accomplish these monumental tasks. The teachings of the Buddha have outlined a very clear practice path for us. We must start by eradicating unwholesome phenomena, abandoning the mind of desire, taking cause and effect as the core, and practicing wholesome phenomena to make the mind detach from and completely destroy the 7 fetters and the 5 hindrances. Step by step, we practice letting go, establish the virtue of giving and offering, and cultivate the virtues of endurance, yielding, and satisfaction in every object and every circumstance. If the initial steps are practiced correctly like that, you monks and Buddhists will easily abandon desires and unwholesome phenomena. And once you abandon desires and unwholesome phenomena, your mind living in the family will be peaceful and happy. No one can do anything to disturb your mind. Your mind will always remain serene, peaceful, and eventless. Once you accomplish the stage of abandoning desires and unwholesome phenomena, you will possess a liberated, peaceful soul and a happy, joyful life. If you are satisfied right here, you have only traveled 1/3 of the Buddhist path. If you want to travel the remaining distance of the Buddhist path while wearing the layperson robe, it is certain that you will hardly achieve it. In the transitional stage from the layperson robe to the ordained monk robe, you must renounce all your wealth and properties, like layman Pang Yun, dumping all wealth, properties, gold, silver, and jewels into the river. Once we renounce wealth, gold, silver, and jewels, how do we resolve the emotional fetter of affection so that we are no longer bound by longing when living in solitude? This is an extremely difficult stage. If parents, brothers, sisters, spouses, and children all thoroughly understand the Buddha Dharma, it is easy to leave. But if the opposite is true, it is immensely difficult. That is the external aspect, whether they agree or disagree. But regarding our own emotions toward these people, can our mind completely cut them off? When sitting in the temple practicing, if the mind is always at home with the family, that mindset can never achieve liberation. If you seek the path of liberation but lack the boldness to cut off ties and lack the willpower to stay away from your loved ones, then even practicing for 1,000 lifetimes will get you nowhere. Take the case of some lay followers who come here to practice. They think that sitting in Zen meditation suppresses wandering thoughts, and once wandering thoughts end, the mind will no longer feel longing, and greed, anger, and ignorance will also vanish. That means they understand according to the practice method of some developed sects. Therefore, they practice for 1,000 lifetimes, countless lifetimes, but will never eradicate longing, greed, anger, and ignorance. Determined to seek the path of liberation from the miserable and laborious worldly life, yet failing to renounce emotions, how can one escape the worldly toil? If you cannot resolve your own mind properly, you should keep the layperson robe and practice wholesome phenomena. Do not dream of Zen concentration. Zen concentration is strictly reserved for those who know how to let go. Let go completely. The practice path of Buddhism and the method of training the body and mind are extremely clear and sequential. In stage 1, first, you must understand the path, the method, and the way to train and cultivate yourself to eradicate bad habits and vices. You must not commit unwholesome phenomena, but constantly increase wholesome phenomena. You establish the virtue of giving and offering, creating long-lasting good fortune. You abandon stinginess and selfishness to make your mind vast. You establish the virtues of endurance, yielding, and satisfaction so that the soul is always joyful and serene. You never feel anger or affliction toward anyone, nor do you desire anyone's property. You live joyfully with your family, setting a good example for everyone. Not afflicting oneself, afflicting others, or afflicting all living beings. The role of a Buddhist lay disciple is to practice just like that. Do not try to practice further. Why is that? Because practicing higher will get you nowhere if you do not completely eradicate the fetter of affection. Buddhism has lower practice classes and higher practice classes, divided into 8 classes called the Noble Eightfold Path. A layperson practices the class of a layperson. When an ordained person becomes a monk, they must finish practicing the ethics class of a layperson. If they do not practice these ethics, they will lose their foundation. The proof is that currently, bhikkhu monks and bhikkhuni nuns frequently violate the prohibitive precepts. This means they lack the ethics of being human and being a holy person. Thus, their path of practice is ruined. Their worldly life is not truly worldly, and their religious life is not truly religious. Instead, they become practitioners of the profession of deception and the profession of superstition. To prepare to enter the class of a monk, you must arrange to renounce material goods completely. Your emotions must be decisive. You must not leave them lingering, but must cut them off entirely, considering yourself already dead. Only then can you transcend the worldly life and become a true ordained disciple of Buddhism. This is a crucial stage for the practice life of every person. Only when you decisively cut off emotions and stay far away from wealth can you enter the right concentration. Otherwise, it is merely a superficial practice, and you will never taste the flavor of liberation. Stepping from the worldly life to the religious life, everything changes completely. Therefore, a person who wants to practice for liberation without preparing themselves will suffer a severe shock. From then on, their life becomes not truly worldly, not truly religious, and their practice goes nowhere. It wastes a whole lifetime without benefiting themselves or anyone else. A person who overcomes this stage is like a fish leaping over the dragon gate. In the past, Zhuangzi and a friend stood watching a fisherman catch fish. One fish from the net being pulled up leaped out. Zhuangzi clapped his hands in praise. "Excellent! That fish is truly smart." The friend asked, "How do you know it is smart?" He replied, "All the other fish share the same fate of falling into the net, yet they do not realize they are in the net. They do not see the danger and disaster. They do not see the suffering of losing their lives. They do not see the knives above and the boiling water and burning fire below. They do not see that their lives are hanging by a thread, and in a fleeting moment, alas, life is gone. A whole school of fish, yet only one escapes. Is that not smart? Who is the smart person? The one who sees that this body is impermanent, is suffering, is non-self. The one who sees this body is impure, defiled, foul-smelling, diseased, and suffering. The one who sees that relatives and loved ones are merely cause and effect, people owing debts to one another. There is nothing permanent or eternal. The phenomena in this world are not ours. They are assembled by conditions. They are suffering, they are bondage. Longing and love are merely temporary while this body is alive. When it perishes, that longing also ceases to exist, dissipating into smoke and clouds. Is that not true, my friends? A person who enters Buddhist practice but fails to see the three cases that determine the fate of their practice will achieve nothing no matter how much they practice. They are merely monks in form. 5 long years passed. During the days of intense practice, he suppressed his mind to the utmost to enter Zen concentration for 5 or 6 hours without a single wandering thought intruding. His breath stopped from 1 to 5 minutes. But at the final moment, Ms. Du Quang tested Min Tong. Min Tong felt like he fell from the sky. The mind of anger flared up overwhelmingly. Everyone's eyes were opened. The developed scriptures are merely a practice method deceiving people from the past until now. In the past, the patriarchs were misguided, and now we are also misguided. Consequently, our descendants will remain misguided forever. Over 25 centuries have passed. From generation to generation, people have followed the footsteps of the Buddha. But unexpectedly, they followed the footsteps of superstitious, mythical heretics. Countless efforts of everyone have now turned into dust and smoke. The practice method. The discourse, Transcending the Worldly Life, is a Dharma teaching on renouncing, abandoning, and eradicating the mind of greed, anger, and ignorance. To transcend the worldly life to become a true Buddhist monk, a holy person, a true person, a liberated person, and an arahant, you must bravely cut off, abandon, bid farewell to, and stay far away from all worldly phenomena, such as 1. staying away from and abandoning the use of makeup to make the body beautiful and luxurious. 2. Staying away from and renouncing wealth and worldly material possessions. 3. Staying away from and severing emotional ties with parents, spouses, children, brothers, sisters, friends, and relatives. To successfully abandon these 3 cases, you must investigate phenomena and use the directing method of wise attention. Every day, you must establish mindfulness before you, observing and contemplating. This body is impure and foul. What is luxurious or beautiful about it to apply makeup? Renounce and distance yourself from it. Do not beautify it anymore. This body is impermanent, a nest of diseases and suffering. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. Sentence 2. Wealth, properties, gold, silver, and jewels are the things that cause us the most suffering. Disasters are also born from them. Let us let go, stay far away, reject, and distance ourselves from them, as if staying away from a poisonous snake. Sentence 3. Parents, spouses, children, brothers, sisters, friends, and relatives are all due to the karmic conditions of borrowing and owing debts to one another. There is nothing to long for, to hate, to suffer for, or to look forward to. Let us let go and sever them all. The above are the investigated Dhamma sentences selected for lay followers to observe, contemplate, and use to autosuggest their minds, preparing to step into the second stage on the practice path of Buddhism. If anyone wants to seek the path of liberation, they must diligently practice observing and thoroughly understanding these principles every day. They must train in the directing method to build a solid inner strength for themselves, so when they become monks, they will not collapse and will advance in their practice more easily. Those who practiced wrongly have left us extremely valuable experiences. From there, we should practice exactly according to what the Buddha taught in the original suttas. Do not rely on the developed scriptures and waste a lifetime of practice. Dear Buddhists, if you want to practice seeking liberation according to Buddhism, the teachings above are the sincere advice of a person who has completed the practice, like a father or a mother who loves their children, always caring for them and wishing them to become useful people for themselves and for everyone. Friends, please pay attention. In these Dharma discourses, there are practice methods. You should use them to practice every day. These Dharma discourses will bring you many beneficial results.
Escaping worldly toil is no ordinary task. In the Sutra on Dependent Origination, it is taught, if the condition of birth exists, the conditions of sorrow, lamentation, suffering, disease, and death exist. If the condition of birth does not exist, the conditions of sorrow, lamentation, suffering, disease, and death do not exist. Knowing this, a person practicing Buddhism must completely sever the condition of birth, and then sorrow, lamentation, suffering, disease, and death will be severed. Severing sorrow, lamentation, suffering, disease, and death is liberation, is nirvana. Understanding this thoroughly, knowing this clearly, if one wants to end sorrow, lamentation, suffering, and the cycle of birth and death, there is no other way than to sever the condition of birth. The only path to liberation in Buddhism, beginning the practice to become a bhikkhu, is to cut off the condition of birth. If one does not cut off the condition of birth, one cannot become a bhikkhu. Due to not understanding the liberation of Buddhism, people renounce the home life to practice merely by adopting the external form of a monk with robes and a shaved head. They thoroughly study the doctrines to become preaching masters known as bhikkhus. But in reality, these bhikkhus do not enjoy the true liberation of Buddhism. They only enjoy worldly fame, profit, and sensual pleasures, just like countless others. As taught above, if the condition of birth is severed, sorrow, lamentation, suffering, disease, and death cease to exist. In the Sutra on Dependent Origination, the Buddha taught, to end the cycle of birth and death, sorrow, lamentation, suffering, and disease, one must abandon, bid farewell to, reject, stay far away from, distance oneself from, renounce, and lay down the condition of birth. Monks and Buddhists must understand that birth here means attachments for living. Birth means living, life, existence, and the things one relies upon to live.
It does not mean giving birth or being born physically. Scholars often rely on discourses in the connected discourses or the agamas to explain birth as giving birth, thus arguing, where there is birth, there is death. Explaining it this way misinterprets the meaning of the sutra on dependent origination, because combining these 12 conditions only forms one human being, and reducing it to one human being is incorrect. Even though the connected discourses and the agamas are original scriptures, we do not accept this explanation. Such a meaning does not align with the worldview of the 12 links of dependent origination. Therefore, defining birth as giving birth or being born is incorrect. The meaning of the word birth in dependent origination is simply one condition among other conditions that combine to create a world of suffering. That is the worldview of Buddhism, not a view of human life as scholars and scriptures explain. This is a massive delusion of scholars, both past and present. Wanting human beings to end suffering and stop the cycle of birth and death, the Buddha presented the philosophy of the 12 links of dependent origination. They connect seamlessly, where birth and cessation continue endlessly as cessation and birth, according to the law of cause and effect, repaying what was borrowed, borrowing and repaying. Thus, in the sutras, the Buddha constantly affirmed and repeated that these 12 links of dependent origination combine to form a world of suffering, as explained above. How do we do it? How do we practice to dismantle these 12 conditions? Reading through all the doctrines of the original suttas, the Buddha selected the condition of birth as the starting point that a monk must tackle. This is the very first stage a bhikkhu must successfully accomplish in his practice, severing the condition of birth. To become a bhikkhu of Buddhism, attachments for living must be severed. Anyone who has not severed attachments for living does not become a bhikkhu, meaning they do not become an ordained disciple of Buddhism. As explained above, birth means living, and attachments means the things one relies upon to live. Thus, attachments for living mean houses, properties, money, jewels, parents, brothers, sisters, spouses, children, paternal and maternal relatives, close friends, grand temples, towering stupas, and massive crowds of followers. Those are attachments for living. Trying to save others while your own practice is incomplete is delusion and ignorance. You bury yourself in the grave of fame and profit to die in suffering, no different from a rich worldly person. Those are attachments for living. An ordained person practicing Buddhism must sever attachments for living. Only by severing attachments for living can one truly live the complete holy life and practice Zen concentration to achieve results. If we practice
but do not sever attachments for living. If we still hold feelings of love and hate sitting in the temple while our minds long for parents, spouses, children, friends, relatives, wealth, and properties with yearning and regret, how can we ever attain the path of liberation? Currently, everyone has two hands. One hand embraces the worldly life, the other embraces the religious life. You grab tightly with both hands. You do not want to abandon the worldly life, but you want to add the religious life. Doing so, how can you fully grasp the path of practice? It is like a person riding boats with one foot standing on one boat and the other foot on another boat. Standing like that, how can the boats move? If you want to find the path of liberation from the misery of life, you must let go of the worldly hand. Then use that hand, together with the other, to firmly embrace the religious path. At that moment, you will instantly experience immediate liberation.
The Buddha taught, severing attachments for living completes the holy life. This teaching is clear and specific, definitively confirming, where there is renunciation, there is liberation. If you do not want to abandon the worldly life, but want to practice Buddhism, you can only practice wholesome phenomena. You cannot practice any higher, and you cannot enter the concentration without outflows, or the Four Noble Concentrations. Nowadays, because their practice is incorrect, and they do not clearly understand the Buddha Dharma, people still try to catch two fish with two hands. Some lay people practicing Buddhism do not know their own capacity and do not clearly understand the Dharma method. So they chant sutras and sit in Zen meditation day and night, diligently striving in their practice. They also go listen to preaching masters and Zen masters give sermons and teach Zen sitting techniques. They put effort into their practice, but they do not dare abandon their spouses and children, and they do not dare cut ties with their wealth. They constantly worry about making money. So I ask, where will their practice liberate them? Where will it lead? They are even certified by Zen masters as having seen their nature to become Buddhas. The seeing nature of these individuals is merely seeing words and phrases. They are skilled at debating, not actually seeing their nature. They are merely skilled in the theoretical reasoning of ignorant illusions. Venerable monks and lay followers sitting here listening to my lecture up to this point, what do you think? Can you abandon the worldly life to follow the religion? Can you let go of your family emotions? Can you let go of your wealth and properties? That is the path of severing attachments for living. Can you do it or not? If we choose religion as the path to liberate ourselves from a miserable and suffering life, then no matter how arduous the religion may be, we will not step back. We would rather die, dying in the religion, dying on the meditation cushion, rather than dying beneath the meditation cushion. We must die in the liberation of cause and effect, rather than dying in the emotional bondage of the family, parents, spouses, children, brothers, sisters, friends, and relatives. We cannot die for the sake of wealth, properties, and careers. We must die for the religion, for the cessation of the cycle of rebirth and human suffering. Only with firm determination and dauntlessness to follow the path of liberation can we abandon everything, sweep everything away, stay far away, and distance ourselves from everything called the worldly life. We accept a transcendent life that is poor but not miserable. We choose the only profession, which is begging, the lowliest profession in society. But precisely through practicing and nourishing the body with this profession, we can resolve the colossal evil ego. We can overthrow it and crush it flat. A person practicing Buddhism no longer makes money. They no longer plow fields or grow vegetables to eat. They eat one meal a day. When hungry, they beg for food. They do not beg for money. When thirsty, they beg for drinking water or go down to the stream to drink. If there is no medicine when sick, they endure it. They do not pity themselves or blame their fate, nor do they quit their practice. They wear torn robes and beg for robes to wear. If they have none, they still gladly accept it to renounce all worldly phenomena, to break free from the material bondage that causes endless suffering for human beings across countless lifetimes. Coming to Buddhism means becoming an ordained monk, where material life is lacking in every aspect. One has almost nothing left. If a person lacks determination and does not clearly see that human life is suffering, true suffering, it will be very hard for them to accept the religious life. The religious life requires complete severance, leaving absolutely no trace of the worldly life in the soul. Only then does practice become easy. Do not sit here while worrying about the worldly life, missing this and that, or making calculations about various things. For Buddhists, they are merely the seed for you monks to create conditions for their future practice. Do not encourage them to become ordained right now, or devise ways to call upon them to make offerings, do charity, build temples, build stupas, or provide the 4 requisites for monks. Doing so turns them into a bondage for you monks. It is because of offerings, building temples and stupas, and doing charity that monks have collapsed on their path of practice. You monks have become servants, fulfilling the spiritual demands of lay people, no longer true monks. When monks become abbots of a temple, most of you are less bound by your families, but are heavily bound by Buddhists. They offer you this to satisfy their desires to do Buddhist deeds, so they also demand that you do that for them. Even if that action is not the teaching of the Buddha, you monks must do it to please them. A monk departs from the worldly life only to be ordered around in the transcendent life. We leave the worldly life to seek the goal of liberation, but if we are not careful, the worldly life orders us around and diverts us from the right path. Transcending the worldly life is a difficult task. Yet, transcending the incorrect life of Buddhism is even harder. This is because the deviations and inaccuracies of Buddhism have deeply penetrated the minds and brains of everyone. They have become profound traditional customs and habits in the folk life, borrowing the name of Buddhism. Our era possesses specific, clear, and authentic practice standards of Buddhism, yet people disregard them, treating those practice methods as nothing.
Therefore, if we want to liberate ourselves from worldly misery and further escape the wrong meditation and wrong teachings of heretics, we must follow the Buddha's example. Lay everything down. Lay it all down. Only the methods through which he achieved liberation from birth, aging, sickness, and death remain. We must take them and diligently practice them without laziness to become fully liberated individuals. Escaping worldly toil is an incredibly difficult task, but having escaped, yet practicing the Buddha's Dharma incorrectly, is a massive waste of a human life. Having escaped, yet refusing to listen to the teachings of experienced predecessors and insisting on practicing according to your own interpretations, thinking you understand correctly, unexpectedly, that is an even greater delusion. Practicing like that is practicing blindly. The majority of these monks are influenced by the wrong teachings of heretics. Severing attachments for living means living exactly according to the holy life. Living exactly according to the holy life means strictly upholding the precepts. Strictly upholding the precepts means wisdom. As the Buddha taught in the long discourses,
Wherever there is moral discipline, there is wisdom. Wherever there is wisdom, there is moral discipline. Thus, severing the condition of birth is wisdom, and wisdom is true knowledge. Wherever there is true knowledge, there is no ignorance. Here we see very clearly, due to ignorance, volitional formations arise. Due to volitional formations, consciousness arises, thereby creating the world of human suffering. If true knowledge exists, ignorance does not exist. If there is no ignorance, there are no volitional formations. If there are no volitional formations, there is no consciousness. If there is no consciousness, there is no world of human suffering. But true knowledge here means the holy life and moral discipline. The Buddha confirmed it as such.
It does not mean that thoroughly studying the Tipitaka constitutes true knowledge. To shatter these 12 links of dependent origination, we must possess true knowledge. To possess true knowledge, we must sever birth. To sever birth, we must live exactly according to the holy life. To live exactly according to the holy life, we must strictly uphold the precepts. Strictly upholding the precepts is true knowledge. True knowledge here is not the wisdom of the threefold knowledge. True knowledge here means view and moral discipline. Wherever there is view, there is moral discipline. Wherever there is moral discipline, there is view. Moral discipline purifies the view. The view purifies moral discipline. Practicing Buddhism, if you misunderstand by an inch, your practice will deviate by 1,000 miles. Buddhist monks today practice wrongly, so they find no liberation. Consequently, they always live in worldly sensual pleasures. They live very luxuriously, with massive temples and giant Buddha statues, having a material life more abundant than worldly people. Every day they eat, drink, sleep, and rest at improper times. They have fun listening to singing and sing themselves. Moreover, these monks hoard money. That means the condition of birth has not been abandoned. Since the condition of birth is not abandoned, the round shaved head and the square robe of the monks are an insult to Buddhism. The ordained monks themselves, by failing to abandon the condition of birth, have inadvertently destroyed Buddhism on their own. Yet, do these monks ever realize this?